Welcome and hello from Alex, with a story from r/PettyRevenge, where a friend is being kicked out of his flat that has a garden because the landlord wants to charge much higher rent. Friend has carefully removed every single thing he planted. Landlord, it's worth more with all the fucking plants. How am I meant to get more rent now? Coming up next is a story from randomgoesbrrrr. Landlord decided to kick out a tenant with a beautiful garden that the person had planted himself, and used the garden to increase rent. Well, get fucked, bitch. Found this subreddit through the click. Thanks, dude. This isn't mine. I found it on Twitter and decided to share it here, cause it fits quite well. Friend is being kicked out of his flat that has a garden because the landlord wants to charge much higher rent. Friend has carefully removed every single thing he planted. Landlord, it's worth more with all the fucking plants. How am I meant to get more rent now? The best bit is that he wanted until landlord had taken loads of photos of the garden for the advert, had people round to view and been told contracts have been signed by the new tenants, who are expecting a beautiful garden, as opposed to the bare patch of dirt that now exists. Muting this because lots of you seem to really love landlords and some of you think I should chastise my actual friend who is being kicked out of his home specifically so the landlord can make more cash. Correct. Wow, that's some serious petty revenge, and honestly, I kind of love it. The landlord sounds like they were trying to have their cake and eat it too. Evict a tenant to jack up rent based on a garden they didn't create, then leaving the tenant holding the bag. OP's act of taking everything back feels justified. It may not be the most mature response, but it is undeniably effective. New tenants expecting a lush oasis are in for a rude surprise. I bet the look on the landlord's face was priceless. Coming up next is a story from 97 and 89. Your appointment is now cancelled. You really never realize something is going to go on as long as it does, until you look back. 2 years ago, I was given a new-to-me phone number when I purchased a cell phone. Immediately, I was bombarded by friends, family, and collection agents of the previous owner of the number, not the phone. They were all looking for the same woman, by name. First couple of months, I answered that person must have changed their number, that I just got this number with a new phone. No harm, no foul. But it hasn't stopped. And I found out why she is still giving out this number. One day, she logged into her name redacted coffee app, and it sent this phone the sign-up code. I bounced to it and logged in with the code. The account had her email address. Finally, I can let her know what's going on and hopefully stop this crap. I used that info to contact her. I told her, I'm sure she didn't mean any harm, but it's become ridiculous. Please stop giving out this number. She replied that I'm some kind of stalker freak. I replied that if she continues to give out my number, I will cancel every appointment that comes across, and tell family she died, and tell creditors where to find her. She blocked my email. I figured, all is well if she stops. She didn't. Okay, bet. A month ago, her application for a school was canceled. Today, her dental appointment for Thursday was canceled. Stop sending your crap to my number. I plan to finally change this number when I get a personal issue resolved, but honestly, I'm low-key enjoying this. And she is still giving out the number so. OP's situation sounds incredibly frustrating. 2 years of dealing with someone else's mess is a lot to handle. While canceling appointments and contacting family might be a bit extreme, I can't say I don't understand the satisfaction OP is getting from it. Honestly, the woman clearly hasn't taken responsibility for updating her contact information. OP has tried to be polite, but it hasn't worked. Hopefully, these little disruptions will be the wake-up call she needs. Maybe OP can take a small bit of amusement out of it until they get a new number. Just a small bit though. Coming up next is a story from jonvox. Person next to me on a plane kept violating my personal space. I was flying in the window seat because I like looking out the window. The woman sitting next to me reached in front of me multiple times to close the window shade. She never asked me. She just reached directly in front of me to close the shade. I would immediately reopen it, and a few minutes later she would reach in front of me again to close it. It was a noon domestic short-haul flight, so no reason to need darkness in the middle of the day, and absolutely no excuse for violating my personal space multiple times without asking me or acknowledging me or treating me like a human in any way. So I pulled out my book and turned on the reading light, despite there being ample natural light from the open window for me to read. I then positioned my hands in such a way that my watch would reflect the reading light directly into her eyes. I read like that for an hour, jiggling my hand the entire time, so it would shine the light back and forth across her eyes and be super distracting and annoying. Once we landed and she took her headphones off, I turned to her and said, "Next time you fly, book a window seat if you want to control the window. Or at least treat me like a human and ask me before you violate my personal space. What you did is unbelievably rude." She looked so offended. And naturally she walked 2 miles per hour. Being a city walker, I easily got in front of her. Then once we were on the moving walkway, I stopped immediately in front of her, did the same on the escalator to the curb, before flipping her off the entire way to my ride. Ouch, that window shade lady sounds like the absolute worst. Completely inconsiderate to reach over you without a word. While I understand the frustration that would build in that situation, Opie's revenge tactics are a bit petty. The whole plane ride with the reading light sounds pretty brutal. Look, getting some revenge was probably satisfying in the moment, but was it really worth turning a short annoyance into a full-on feud? Maybe a polite "excuse me, would you mind if I kept the window open?" at the beginning would have gotten the point across without the drama. Still, that woman definitely deserved a good talking to, or at least a dose of bright light therapy. Coming up next is a story from SteadfastDharma, and if you like the video so far, don't forget to like the video. It only takes a second and helps me out a lot. Next, Tenant was cheap, wanted my stuff for nearly nothing. She didn't get to keep anything. This happened several years ago. I rented from a social housing society in the Netherlands. Over here, the renter is responsible for flooring, wallpaper or paint, gardening themselves. I had taken great care and great pride in both decorating the house and growing a beautiful garden. When I moved, I talked with the next tenant to see what she wanted to keep, but for a price, of course. That's how things are over here. But she was cheap and refused to agree upon a reasonable price for the lot. I got the feeling she gambled I was not able to remove the lot anyway. She gambled wrong. I gathered a bunch of friends, and within 2 days everything was gone. Bare concrete floors, bare concrete walls, bare old dirty wooden stairs, the minimal kitchen, and the garden was just an empty, flat, black soil wasteland. Everything was gone, including the 3-meter by 5-meter wooden shed. The fence at the very back, gone. All the nice tiles, plants and flowers, bushes and a pear tree, gone. I was very pleased when I closed the door of that house behind me one final time. Later, I heard from a friend who lived a couple of houses down the road from that house that the new lady was upset with how she found the place, but there was nothing she could do about it. Well, perhaps the lady learned a thing. Ouch, Opie definitely put a lot of effort into that decorating project. While I can completely understand the frustration of having someone lowball you for your hard work, stripping the entire place down to bare bones seems a bit extreme. It sounds like a ton of work for both Opie and their friends. There's a certain satisfaction in the new tenant getting what they deserved, but I can't help but wonder if there wasn't a less nuclear option, maybe offering to remove everything herself at a fair price, or selling it separately online. Still, that look on the new tenant's face when they saw the place, priceless. Coming up next is a story from Starbucks lovers. Scammer almost got me, so I created 2 Google Voice numbers and called them back nonstop. I am a new dad. I am sleep deprived and just feel sluggish all the time. After dropping my baby off with her grandparents, I saw an invoice on my email for $450 that I never paid to Norton Antivirus. It had a phone number to call, so I called it. As soon as I called, I realized it was a scam, but it sure as heck aggravated me. I pretended to be scammed up until the point where I'd give my computer control to the scammers, which took a good 10 minutes. I spoke to Melvin after that. I told him he's a dumb scammer and he yelled at me. So, I realized the number was still there. I have 2 Google Voice accounts I don't use anymore that I had for a prior job, so I called them. I kept calling. I kept asking for Melvin. Sometimes, I'd get a new guy who didn't know my game. Fortunately, I didn't have anything urgent at work that day, so I kept calling. I called and called and called. At some point, one of the gentlemen let out an exasperated sigh, saying, "Oh my God, it's you again." I didn't relent. I kept calling. I called over and over and over and over again. I told as many of them as possible that their mothers are ashamed of them. I told them that their lives are wastes. I kept calling and calling until I actually had work to do, and so I stopped. Today, I woke up and called the number. Today, they were PayPal. I got Melvin again. We chatted before he told me to fuck off. I called again. I kept calling nonstop for about 30 minutes. After an hour break, I tried calling again. Immediately blocked on all my numbers. I grabbed a family member's phone. Immediately disconnected. I win. It was a small, insignificant battle, but I won. No one can call that number anymore. Until next time. Opie's revenge on the scammers is pretty epic. Sure, sleep deprivation can make you loopy, but turning the tables and harassing them back is kind of genius. Wasting their time with endless calls and insults must have been incredibly satisfying, especially getting Melvin to crack under the pressure. Calling them out and making them feel like their efforts are pointless is a win for sure. Maybe a bit harsh on their mothers, but hey, scammers deserve a little taste of their own medicine. It might not be a long-term solution, but Opie definitely took a stand and won a small victory. Good on them. Coming up next is a story from Subuso. I got my bully expelled from high school. My first interaction with the bully was in 9th grade. He failed 9th grade and had to repeat it. We were not only in the same class, but we were also put sitting together. The guy bullied me for being gay, overtly skinny, smart, basically anything you can think of. There was also some physical violence, as well as some sexual innuendos. He grabbed my butt a couple times and would rub his genitals to catch my attention. At the time I strongly believed he was gay, and today I have the confirmation. The following year, we both moved on to 10th grade. One afternoon, at the end of chemistry class, the whole class was acting out of control, so the teacher called the principal, who punished us by keeping us in the classroom for 10 minutes, shutting the door and staying outside the room. In an act of rebellion, I hit the door really hard with my palm. The teacher heard it and came back inside to give me something I can translate as a red absence. It's a harsh form of punishment for bad behavior. Worse than this is suspension and expulsion. The next day, the head teacher assigned to our class asked us about what happened. At this point, for whatever surprising reason, most of my classmates had had enough with this guy's bullying and didn't seem to like him anymore. So, they all told me to tell the teacher that me and him hit the door together and they would support me. As a result, the bully also got a red absence. He got heavily upset to the point of calling his father to the school to talk to the principal. I was asked to make a statement in front of his father and I lied to this father with a straight face. A few months later, the bully got himself in another problem. He was making money piercing ears after school inside school premises. One teacher found him doing this, and they got another red absence. 2 red absences in the same year means expulsion. He got expelled and I was left with one less bully. Good for Opie. That bully sounds awful. Being targeted for so many things must have been incredibly difficult, while getting expelled might seem a bit extreme. Opie shouldn't have had to deal with that kind of treatment in the first place. The classmates finally coming together to support Opie is a great twist. Sometimes solidarity can take a while, but it sure makes a difference. And let's face it, lying to the bully's dad under the circumstances? Totally justified. Opie definitely deserves a win here. Hopefully high school became a much more positive experience after that. That wraps up r/PettyRevenge. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to visit my Spotify channel. Link is in the description, so you can listen to the best Reddit story while being outside, and remember to hit that subscribe button.